Hello and welcome to Remember This. I am ADHG, and Sonic Mania is almost here, and needless to say, I am excited for it. Sonic is perhaps one of my favorite franchises in existence, even despite a couple of,
boo-boos.
I mean, even if a new Sonic game doesn't turn out to be good, I always look forward to it just to see what they try. However, Sonic Mania seems to be going back to the classic Genesis style, so in order to celebrate, how about we take a look at some of those classic games on the Genesis and see how they hold up. Well, to begin, let's start with a little history about Sonic. Sega wanted to create their own mascot, as a rival to Mario, so instead of an Italian stereotype, we have an armadillo, a squirrel, Robotnik in his PJs, and then they came up with a radical blue hedgehog named Sonic. And thus, Sega had their mascot, with its gimmick besides having attitude, was all about speed. Well, mostly. Now before I go much further, this was actually not my first Sonic game. That honor actually goes to 2, but more about that for next time. It wasn't until the holidays where I got all my Genesis games where I played this for the very first time. In fact, going into this game after the sequels was actually rather off-putting. I mean, Sonic is by himself, there's no spin dash, there's no elemental shields, what is this? Ah, what a great familiar scene here. I found it a little bit silly that Sonic wags his finger at you in most of the title screens. It's almost as if he's saying, yeah. Despite lacking features such as the spin dash, Sonic manages to control pretty well in his first installment. The various monitors help, like good old invincibility in a can. Even though Sonic's main gimmick is his speed, I find a good balance between all the different levels. The Green Hill Zone is a perfect starter stage, mostly to get used to the controls, and you'll be seeing this stage quite often in later games. But not as much as the half-pipe special stages, but I'll save my thoughts about that for next time. The Marble Zone focuses more on the platforming aspects of Sonic, and because it's the second stage, it has a bit of a mixed opinion amongst fans, but I'm fine with it. Though it has taught me one thing, hedgehogs are fire resistant. The Spring Yard Zone heads back to the Green Hill speed, but it also gives some of the platforming aspects like the Marble Zone, and as the name suggests, there's so many springs! The Labyrinth Zone is where we find out that Sonic can't really do much underwater. He can't swim and he can't breathe for very long, which is weird because Mario can do both. And honestly, out of all the stages in this game, this is probably my second to least favorite. Not just because of the water physics, but it's so easy to get lost in this stage. Well, I guess it does live up to its name after all. But let me tell you, losing track in water is not fun. And the boss of this stage doesn't help either. See, Robotnik is traveling up and you have to go chase after him, but there's so many obstacles trying to stop you, such as gargoyles that shoot fire and spears. And on top of that, you have to outspeed the water that's rising, and if you don't make it up in time, you will drown. The Starlight Zone, which is a breath of fresh air compared to the last stage, no pun intended, not only does it look beautiful and sound beautiful, but it also utilizes the speed more than the last stages. And now we come to the final level, the Scrap Rain Zone. And it's probably the most experimental stage in the entire game. Not only does Robotnik bring in everyone, but there's also some past obstacles along with some new ones that really flexes your skills with Sonic. Not to mention, the third act is the Labyrinth Zone. And you know how I felt about that before? I'm not happy about it here either. If you collect 50 or more rings by the end of a stage, you can actually jump into a giant ring which will take you to a very trippy special state, provided you didn't accidentally speed by it. Within every special stage, there's a Chaos Emerald for you to collect, and if you collect all 6, you get really big flowers. Well, that was the first game, I wasn't expecting anything like Super Sonic. However, you do get continues when you get the Chaos Emeralds, and trust me, for the later stages, I'm looking at you, Scrap Rain, you need them. Not to mention the bosses can be a bit of a pain themselves, but they're actually kind of unique. The Wrecking Ball boss is probably one of the easiest in the games, and it makes sense, it's the first boss you come across. It is nowhere near as laughable as the egg drill in the second game. The Marble Zone has you jumping from platform to platform as Robotnik tries to drop fire on you. In Spring Yard he tries to eliminate your platforms. Labyrinth just sucks. Starlight relies on you using seesaws to send spike bombs or yourself to defeat Robotnik. Then there's the final zone boss where Robotnik tries to make Hedgehog juice out of Sonic, and I just gross myself out with that image. What's different about this boss compared to the other ones is you start out with no rings at all, so perfect run or nothing. Overall, Sonic 1 is actually a really fun game. It's a really good start for the Blue Hedgehog. Though admittedly, it's not one I personally go on my way for. There's a couple of questionable game design choices, but it ultimately works out in the end. Though with that said, I think it's best enjoyed if this is your first Sonic game. As I'll admit, the sequel spoiled me quite a lot. However, Sonic 1's legacy is quite present. Not only one of the most ROM-hackable Sonic games, but it also seems to be the most ported Sonic game by far. Which leads us to the most infamous port, Sonic Genesis on the Game Boy Advance. And I've actually never played this game before. I mean, how can you make the original Sonic bad? It's the first Sonic game. Oh. In this game we get the classic mode, which is basically the regular Sonic 1, and an anniversary mode, which gives us not only the spin dash, but a save feature. So with these added bonuses, you think we have a better game experience, right? The first issue I have is the screen is too cramped. Now that's the common problem you have when you port home console games into handhelds. But here I find it to be very detrimental to Sonic's gameplay. I mean, I get blindsided one too many times. But that's not the worst of the problems. No, we have inconsistent frame rate, where Sonic will be going through a field of molasses, or it will be going faster than Speedy Gonzales after gulping a lot of sugar. And it's even worse in the special stages, which were trippy enough already, but now everything moves way too fast. And it just tosses you in there too, no sound cue or anything like the Genesis version. I feel like I'm gonna have a seizure every time I get the emeralds. Whatever you do, don't play this in the dark. Just don't. Wait, what? Oh, that's great. I'm trying to do some platforming and Sonic tries to moonwalk off of the platforms. Is this really necessary? And I just don't get it. I mean, it looks like it's the first Sonic game, but the gameplay and the music just doesn't feel like it. In fact, it comes off more like a cheap bootleg of the first game. Now, it's one thing to make a new Sonic game and it ends up being bad, but to make the original an unplayable train wreck like this.
You do seriously surprise me.
Thank you, Chef. I was hoping you'd see that. I mean, I'd give it all I got. Give you 110.
You surprise me to how shit you are.
Thank you.
Well, that's enough for Sonic 1. When next we meet, we're going to take a look at what made Sonic a household name and also my first jump into the franchise, Sonic 2. This is Remember This. I'm Andy SG, and I'll catch you later.